Alright, here's my dad's 2012 Kia Sportage. She's the Turbo-GDI, so she's got a turboed 4-banger in her. And compressor don't work. AC don't blow cold, blows hot. And yeah, just generally, I hate this car. Performance is good for what it is. You know, it does everything it needs to do. It's quasi-reliable, except for the fact that the engine imploded at 105 miles. But that was because of just total lack of quality control on Kia's part, and they replaced all of that for free and gave it an unlimited drivetrain warranty. So that's nice. Shouldn't have done that, but you know, at least they did the right thing and covered their ass. And I think the high pressure fuel rail went out once and snapped a door check because it was horribly engineered. But generally, the car is fairly reliable, except for the imploding engine. Anyway, but I digress. The compressor went out, and I think they broke it at the Kia dealership when they swapped the engine out. They had that thing for like 6 months, and I found a thing of spray silicone jammed behind the engine. Still got it. So, yeah. AC worked before the engine blew up, didn't work after the engine blew up, and I think it's the compressor. So, what I'm going to do today is diagnose it, hook up my AC manifold, check pressures, and see if it is in fact a weak compressor, or if it's potentially a constriction or something like that. All I know is that we've changed the expansion valve, and I've recharged it before, and ain't working now. Alright, got my manifold ready to go. I've just got the input line hooked back up to itself so it doesn't leak. And this cheapo Chinese thing is, she's been beat on a bit, but anyway, still works. Down here, this is your high pressure fitting. You can tell because it has an H on it. Also because this quick disconnect is significantly larger in diameter. And so you can't put it on the wrong one. This is low pressure up here, got an L on it, smaller quick disconnect. I've got both of these valves cranked to shut, and what I'm going to do is hook this up and check the ambient temperature to see if we have a freon leak. I filled this up about a year ago, I think. 8 months, something like that. No, I think it was about a year. So we'll see if it still has freon in it. Ambient pressure right now should probably be somewhere around 90 psi because it's like 85 out. And yeah, then we'll, if that looks good, we'll turn the car on, run it, and see what the readings are on the compressor. So low pressure should nominally be about 30 psi, and high pressure is a function of ambient, so we'll figure that out when we get there. So I'm gonna hook those fittings up, figure out what ambient is, and then we'll fire her up and see if the compressor's doing anything. So I think something's not right. Because it says we have 350 psi on the low pressure side and 150 on the high pressure side. And I'm the last person who put any freon in this, and I evacuated the system with a vacuum pump, and I put in the manufacturer's spec wherever the hell that's written. So that's extremely interesting. I wonder if it's got a one-way leak and it's actually pulling atmosphere and compressing it. Because I don't think the compressor was running, and that's very, very worrying. Or my manifold broke, one of the two. I might go hook this up to a truck over here and see if it reads accurately or not. Stand by. Guys, I'm scared. Here's the truck. I just recharged this. She's got a leak somewhere. It might be the compressor or the evaporator core or something. She's got a tiny pinhole. She loses charge over about 6 months, so I just fill her up once or twice a year and call it a day. But anyway, there she is. She's sitting exactly where she's supposed to be, 90 on both. That's ambient. That's exactly what I want to see. 90 is, you know, nominal for most vehicle AC systems. So manifold is not broken, which means there's 350, well, I don't know if I trust that gauge. There's like 150 psi on both sides, I'm assuming, since the high pressure side reads 150. I put the appropriate charge in that a year or so ago. So I think something has gone horribly awry and we have a one-way leak and it's sucking atmosphere into the system. Because whenever I take this guy off, it definitely has 150 psi in it. That one doesn't really seem like it has 150 psi in it. And it blows like a cloud of steam, or maybe compressor oil. I'm pretty sure I put UV dye in it and none of that came out. This is all oil. This is a UV flashlight, by the way. You can there's no dye in there. None in there either. You can see just a whiff of it on the outside over there. And, you know, if I look over here, you can see all of it that is sprayed everywhere. Yeah, you can see the UV dye and whatnot. So I'm super fucked. And yeah, probably need a compressor or maybe some kind of sensor or something. All I know is Kia fucked this up hard. At least they gave us a new engine, so I mean, that was great. And just like that, on the other end of the weekend, have not run the AC, just drove the car, and now it reads nominal, like 92 PSI. And it's like 5 degrees colder out. It's 85 instead of 90 something. I don't know what the hell happened, but system isn't pressurized now. Alright, now that that stopped doing that for some reason, we've got the car on, got the compressor running. If you look down there, that's the compressor on the bottom. She is spinning, the clutch is engaged. And yeah, she ain't compressing shit. What's she doing? 110, not even PSI, 105 PSI. And it's cycling back and forth between like 78 and 85. So she's not building any pressure at all. So the compressor is not pushing anything on the high pressure side. So yeah, we're gonna assume the compressor because it's running. And if the compressor's running, it should be compressing. If it was a sensor, you know, it would be, you know, stopping the compressor from doing anything, unless it's like some kind of restriction in the high pressure line that just is not allowing any pressure to go into the high pressure side. So yeah, I'll investigate further, but I'm not hopeful. Alright, so looking at the routing, that big line down there, this guy right there, that's the low pressure into the compressor, and then that small line right there with the green stripe on it, that's the high pressure side, and that goes straight into the condenser and then comes, then I believe that comes back out, routes this way to the two Schrader valves. Well, that one comes from the evaporator. So it's either the compressor is bad or there is just flat out a just solid plug in the condenser, this line, or the front half of that line right there. I don't know. The sensor is right there, so it's in the exact same circuit as the high pressure line. Yeah, that's where my brain space is. I gotta look into this a little bit more, but I'm still feeling compressor just being totally fucked. There's a fly in my tequila. That's better than a worm. Anyway, lost the valve stem caps, forgot to put them back on, so now they're lost to oblivion. That's great. I'm gonna have to buy some of those. Probably was gonna get them anyway. Made some progress on the diagnosis. It's potentially a shear pin in the clutch. I don't think so, but we're gonna test that with a little dental mirror on a stick. And once we check and verify whether or not the center bolt down there in the compressor is spinning while the clutch is engaged, because if the center bolt is spinning while the clutch is engaged, then it's fine. There's no shear pin issue. I don't think that's the problem because you saw it did compress. However, the other thing is way on down yonder, which you're not going to be able to make out because it's literally not visible, but down there on the bottom there is a second wire that you can almost kind of sort of make out that goes to a electronic control valve that essentially is a solenoid that engages and disengages the compressor. It's like a bypass valve, and if that fails, then the compressor just doesn't compress because it pushes the air and it just goes right back through that solenoid. So if the shear pin is not the issue, I'm probably just going to buy one of those and replace it. I can also pull the skid plate off down here, disconnect that, hook a voltmeter up to either side and get an ohm reading just like a ignition coil and see whether or not it's bad. So we're going to check that before I drop $300 on a fucking compressor. Alright, if you don't want to do this, you know, bastardized bullshit, you can also just pull the plastic panel out from behind the wheel in here and do it, but I'm lazy and I don't feel like doing that. So, bolt's spinning, as you saw, so compressor isn't necessarily hosed, so I'm thinking it's going to be that electronic control valve. and I think I'm willing to take a gamble on a $50 valve and have to bite the bullet on that, then just straight up buy a $300 compressor. Because if I buy the compressor, I'm pretty confident it's going to fix the problem. But if I can spend $50 and, you know, not have it be the compressor, that'd be nice. Okay, so you can actually see the valve right there in the center of the screen, where it's plugged in, down here through the oil filter hole. So you just pop the skid plate off and you can get right to it. Just take a flathead screwdriver or a pair of pliers or something, and you just basically pry around it, and it pops right out. Just press fit in. You just slide a new one in, just push it back in, and that should hopefully be it, or it'll blow out, one of the two. Alright, so let me show you how to get this splash guard off, because in order to check your, whatever the hell it's called, electronic control valve, compressor valve, electronic compressor control valve, external control compressor, whatever it's called, the ECV, you're going to have to take your splash guard off, which is this big old piece of plastic running the whole way around, and that's held on by two different kinds of fasteners. It's got three 12mm bolts, and they are proper 12 millimeters. They are not half-inch. If you put a half-inch on there, it feels like it's about to strip the thing off. I mean, they're only in there about 10 foot-pounds, but regardless, they are true 12mm. And then these things, which are these sort of screw-in push rivets, but then sometimes they don't screw out. So if they don't screw out, just shove. I've got this fastener puller, which is specifically designed for pulling these similar type fasteners on cars. So I can just take this, jam it right underneath the head like this, and if I want to, I can just pop the thing out. But what you want to do is just take it, put some pressure on it, and then it's a Phillips head, and you just back it out until it starts coming out. And if it doesn't start coming out, just rip the damn thing out. If you break them, you can buy a pack of replacements for like 10 bucks off Amazon, and then replace every one on the car for the next 20 years. So yeah, you don't need to take the whole splash guard out, but you do need to take all this stuff out in front of the mud flaps. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think, so that you can drop this down far enough to be able to get in. And I know this looks terrible and it's really hard to follow, and I'm doing like this the whole time, but just don't worry about it. I'll show you when I have all this crap off. Okay, there was one extra fastener here on the mud flap, so I just took the one out on this side, which should give me enough, and if it decides it's gonna fight me, I'll pop the other one off over there. But now we can finally get at the compressor, and that's the guy we're looking for right there. And I'm wondering if I can disconnect that wire up there and use that to test better without having to jam probes into the actual valve itself. So we'll see, but if not, we can just test directly from the valve. So I'm gonna get to working on that. Okay, it was an absolute struggle to get this on camera, but I finally got the ohm meter hooked up, and we're measuring 11.4 ohms, which is right at spec. Spec is 10 to 11 ohms at 77 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's like 87 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to assume that the hotter it is, the higher the resistance. So 11.4 is totally reasonable. The acceptable range is 8 to 14, nominal is 10.5. So looks like that guy is fine. At least, you know, the solenoid, the windings in the solenoid are fine. So I'm thinking it's probably the compressor. The other thing I can try and do is hook that up to directly to 12 volt power and see whether or not the solenoid clicks. And another thing I can do, because I don't think I'm gonna be able to do that because it's just so damn hard to access this thing, is I can evacuate this system of refrigerant, and I can come up in here and I can pull the snap ring out right down there at the bottom of this, pull that valve out, and then test it on the bench and just inspect it to see if there's like big chunks of aluminum out on it. But I'm thinking probably new compressor. Was not the cheap option. Alright, new house, new garage. Had to put everything on hold while I moved, but we got her here, we got her on blocks. AC system has been pumped of all refrigerant. So down to nothing, just got it open to the atmosphere to get rid of any extra pressure that's still in there, or release any vacuum. So I've just gone and put her on jack stands on either side. Got the jack in place for safety and the wheel underneath the brake rotor, you know, so I can pop the bead and change the tire and get my, you know, head decapitated at the same time if it comes off the stands. And yeah, we're gonna have to take the belt off of the AC compressor, and we have to take this splash guard out right here, which I believe is some of this stuff over here. I'll sort it out. And then we have to take the skid plate thingy off the bottom, brush cover doohickey, so we can get the compressor. And just for good measure, come in here as well and pull the valve stems out, just to make sure that there's absolutely no pressure in the system when we start unhooking stuff. And I did buy a compressor. I decided it was the compressor, so I bit the bullet. I also bought a seal kit, a new Schrader valve, cores and caps, and I also got a desiccant pack for the condenser, but that's buried all up inside the grill and I don't want to fuck with it. So we never vented to atmosphere, so I don't think there's any moisture in there. So we're not going to do that. And then just 2 cans of Freon. And yeah, simple as. I guess I'm going to pull these suckers off down here. You already saw me pull that off before. I won't go over that again. But I'll figure out how to get this guard off the side so I can get at the belt and tell you where those fasteners are. Alright, got that off. It's 3 10mm up there. And you have to take the brush guard cover, underside doohickey off to get this third one over here. But you don't have to do any of that because I was fucking lied to. So the idler, I guess it's different on the 2-liter turbo. The idler's right here. It's 11/16, and you can just do that. It takes a good bit of force, but you can do that. Pop it off of this idler right here, and you have enough slack you can get off the compressor. So you actually don't have to put it on jack stands, and you don't have to take that off, and you don't have to take the wheel off. So yeah, learn from my mistake. You don't gotta do any of that. So guess let's get at that compressor now. Alright, so to get the compressor out, we have this clipped plug right here, and then we have these 2 12mm bolts holding on the high pressure and the low pressure AC lines running up here to the, well, that way into the condenser. So I'm going to take that plug off first, and then the big line, and then hopefully I can get once I can knock this guy out of the way, which is connected up here, I should hopefully be able to more easily get to that from the bottom or from the top. I don't know. It's probably going to be easiest to do it from the top, I think. Yeah, barely. And then once we do that, we have these 4 12mm bolts holding it on, and then I believe it just plops on out of here. Then we'll just blop the other one right up in there. Hook everything back up, replace the O-rings on those 2 lines, put belt back on, and hopefully that should be it. Old and new. Both weigh the same. This is pre-filled. This actually feels fine, except it does that. So I think the crank burned up or something. That sounds like rod knock or something. This doesn't do that. Alright, new compressor is in. I just got to hook up the lines and the sensor. So I highly recommend leaving your caps on, so 1, you don't get dirt and sand in the compressor while you're putting it in, and 2, so that you don't accidentally dump all the oil out if you tip it upside down while putting it in. So I just torque these down to about 1/4 ugga chugga. So that's probably about 15, 20, probably about 20 foot-pounds, maybe 15. Nothing crazy. I didn't look up the torque spec. It's just holding aluminum. You just don't want to crank it so much that you crack the compressor housing. And yeah, I'd recommend replacing these O-rings. I'm lazy and I'm not going to. Plus they both look to be in pretty good shape. This one looks to be in really good shape. The other one up there is a little bit flat, but it's still nice and soft, so I'm not worried about it. So I'm going to hook those 3 back up, and I think the hardest thing is going to be routing this belt again. And then we'll be ready to huck some Freon in it. Alright, belt is routed back on. that was indeed a bear. Pretty much no arm room in here with this fucking engine mount up here. And this AC line here as well gets in the way of an offset 11/16 wrench. So if you got a straight wrench, that would be beautiful. And I think it's just too narrow to really get a socket in there. You probably get one on a breaker bar in there, but it'd be tight. Yeah, so I guess all that's left to do now is put just a touch of Freon in the system, just equalize it out to a can, and then cut the engine on and see if it works, see if it compresses, see if it sucks some stuff in, or if we've got something else fucked in the system.
I'm also doing oil change and rear brake pads today, and man, I just love this oil filter. It's like a service truck. I can just reach up and just get two hands, you know, fucking ass to ass together and just grip this thing and turn it. It's beautiful. Wish my Jeep was like that. You'd have to take that thing off though, but it's worth it. And yeah, oily.
All right, everything's hooked back up. Finished changing my oil. Now we're going to hook up the vacuum pump, and we're going to pull a vacuum on this system, suck all of the water and Freon out, and as well as all the atmosphere. We'll run this for about 15-20 minutes till it stabilizes. It usually stabilizes around like -25 or something like that. We'll pull out as much air as we can. We'll let it sit for about 30 minutes just to see if it's leaking at all. Ideally, you want to leave it for like an hour or two just to see if the pressure goes up at all, because if it's going up, that means that vacuum or atmosphere is getting in, and you got a leak somewhere. But we got a thunderstorm coming, and I got like an hour before it gets here, so we're not going to waste time. I'm just going to run it for 15 minutes, then let it sit for 15-30 minutes, however long I feel like. If nothing obvious looks wrong, I'm just going to dump some Freon in it, and hopefully we'll be blowing cold. Wish me luck. Here we go. Okie dokie, vacuum pump's been running for about 15 minutes. We settled at -26 psi, so that looks good to me. It's been pretty constant in its volume, what it sounds like. We may be at the point where we're still boiling off water. I don't know, but the system, it held Freon, so I'm pretty confident it didn't have a leak. I'm pretty confident there was an atmosphere getting in. So I think I'm going to shut these valves down, and then we will shut off the vacuum pump, disconnect it, and then we'll let it sit for another 15-20 minutes and see if we change. Alright, I got the manifold hooked up, engine's running, and I'm putting in Freon. Compressor's on. I believe the capacity for the Kia is 18 ounces. So I've got her in here set to low. She's blowing cold, not crazy cold, but cold. So it's working. Compressor definitely was the source of the problem. I think I might have a condenser restriction, just because this seems to be high and that seems to be high, but we won't worry about it for now. Like I said, I think the capacity is 18 ounces. I looked it up somewhere before. I probably already said it in this video, but I've forgotten because it's been like 3 months. And yeah, the way that you figure out how much you're putting in is you get a little postal scale, and you just put in a full can, and if you're over 24 ounces, you put in 2 full 12-ounce cans. Then you get the other one, hook everything up, put it on the scale, get your baseline reading, and then start feeding it in. And when you're the desired amount lower, for me 6 ounces, you do the math on the front end. So right there it says I'm 1 pound and a quarter, so we'll go for 10 ounces roughly, 10 and a quarter. So you just open up your, I gotta do this off camera, but you open up your can, you open up your low pressure side, let it start feeding in, and just keep an eye on that. And when it says it is the desired amount, cut it off, cut your valve off up there, and you should be good to go. So I'm gonna finish this up, and I'll go get the meat thermometer to show you that it is working. All right, I got 18 ounces in, line is off, valves are closed. My final readings seem to be 45-225. And, oh yeah, that's nice. Got some 60-something degree air right there. And as you can see, she is condensing water out of the atmosphere, so she is indeed cooling. And I think we're good. All right, engine's off. I've been letting it sit for maybe about 5 minutes, and it looks like we're down to about 83 and 120-ish ambient, so that's pretty good. We have the right amount. Also, I remembered that the sticker's up here, and it's 18 ounces, so we're good to go there. Got the full Freon capacity. It's blowing cold. It's pissing water everywhere, so I think we're good to go. It's just a matter of if it holds Freon now, whether or not those O-rings were shot, or this new compressor has a big hole in it somewhere. So last thing I gotta do is I gotta put new caps over here on the low and high pressure. I'd recommend you probably do that too if you're going through the effort of replacing a compressor that's like $5 for a valve stem kit. Just go ahead and do it, and if the caps, and save your old caps, because sometimes these new ones are shit. But I put mine somewhere and they disappeared, so I need to buy them. Yeah. I think that's it for me. Alright, since I don't have a core charge on this AC compressor, just for my own curiosity's sake, I'm going to try and disassemble this as best I can. Probably not going to mess with the clutch or all that, but I'm going to try and pull this ECV out, which is just this plug and a snap ring, and then it's just kind of press fit in. And I'm going to see if I can test it or identify, you know, what the heck is actually wrong with this compressor. So I think first I'm going to drain the oil out of it, just get a cup and just, I think it's the high pressure side. This one, I think. One of them. Disconnect that, drain the oil out, and then pop that ECV out, and hopefully find out what the problem was, and get that on a bench, test it, and see if it actually is opening and closing, or if like all the O-rings are exploded or something. So I'm gonna dig into it, and I'll show you what I find. Alright, so she fought a little bit, and she's a little broke, but I got the ECV out. I don't see anything immediately obviously wrong. There's some aluminum corrosion right here, which was about sitting like that, I believe. So it would have been right about on this side over here where this gap is. Don't know if that has something to do with it, but that shouldn't have made any difference because that corrosion is up here at the top, and it's only what's past this O-ring that matters. So that all looks fine. However, when I went to drain the oil, I didn't even get like an ounce. I'm gonna try and drain it out of here now. It was kind of fighting me coming out. The has a drain plug down here. So I'm gonna dump some more out of there and see if there's any, but I think it was a lack of oil that killed this thing. So I don't know if when Kia replaced the engine, they pulled the compressor, drained the oil, and then forgot to put oil back in, or what, or that weird reading I was getting where it seemed like there was a restriction in the condenser. Maybe there's a plug in the condenser, and oil isn't getting to the compressor, and it just eventually burns itself up. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I may need to replace the condenser as well, but for now, we're just going to stick with the compressor, and hopefully that solves the problem. And if it doesn't, then I mount another compressor as well as condenser. Alright, so I busted out the voltmeter, still reads 11.5 ohms, but I also busted out the car battery, and I've got this really safe setup going on. And if I take this wire and I touch it right here to this lead right here, nothing's happening. I'm just arcing. And I tried this both ways, and it's the same both ways. I feel like this solenoid, this valve should be, you know, valving? Solenoiding? You know, something should be doing this in here. Like, so I'm assuming that's the problem, is that this is like stuck open or something. That was my thought. Yeah, because like nothing's happening. I'm running 12 volts to it. I don't think it's supposed to be taking more than that, but you know, nothing's happening. Nothing is moving in here as far as I can tell. You know, I'm looking at that shaft. I'm looking at this down here. I don't know which is which, but I mean, you tell me. Ah! I was touched two together, welded them together a little bit there. You didn't see. I see nothing moving in there. Yeah. I guess I can swap it for you. Although it's a little dangerous like this. Let me try not to touch both wires at the same time. If I can do this safely. All right, I'm gonna pay attention to the wire. You pay attention to that. I'm not seeing anything happen. I'm not feeling anything happen either. So I think this guy's bad. Yeah. So I think that was the root cause. I think my gut instinct was correct that it was this thing and not the actual compressor itself. I still never got any oil. I got about maybe an ounce, but that's it. But this thing just seems to be fucked. So yeah, I might try and pull this apart a little bit more. Kind of want to see whether or not there's like big chunks of metal in there, but I also kind of don't want to get oil everywhere. So I think I'm gonna go make myself a cardboard box to work in, and I'm gonna go a little bit deeper. All right, so I tried taking it apart further, but there's this like snap ring that's like buried in the bottom behind the bearing on the pulley, and I just can't get to it with any of my snap ring pliers. I mean, it's like down there like that deep. There's just no way I can get a set of snap ring pliers on it, so I can't get it out, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be like pulling it out with a, you know, what you call it, slide hammer or something, but anyway, it's more effort than I'm willing to put in this, so we'll just never know. I'm pretty sure these bolts are like that long, and you have to take the pulley off to be able to get them out, because the only seam I see is right here, and the only bolts I see are right here. So yeah, I'm just guessing these are 8-inch bolts, but could be something different, I don't know, but I'm not gonna mess with it. Yeah, that's as far as I was able to get, so I'm just gonna operate off of the assumption that it was indeed this ECV and that everything is hunky-dory Gucci, and I don't have to do anything else until the compressor blows up again. So I'm done with this thing now. So this video helped you out. How about considering going down there, giving it a like, comment, and tell me if you've got some other strange issue. I can't diagnose it for you because I'm not a mechanic, but I can probably send you a link to the documents and literature I was looking at. And yeah, if you want to see more repairs to a 2012 Kia Sportage 2.0 liter inline 4 Turbo-GDI engine, you should probably go somewhere else, because I don't like working on this car. And yeah, till next time, I'm out.